Hello, everybody. This is your boy, the Logical Dude. Welcome back to another episode of Coin Logic TV. We are here on another Monday with Taskmaster4450. How are you doing today, sir?
Great, dude.
Right on, man. It's been a crazy week or so in the news. I don't know if you've been following a lot of the stuff with some of these centralized exchanges, like some of the madness going on with FTX and a lot of the stuff that SBF's saying. And now we've got Coinbase officially joining the New World Order, partnering with the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab joining that side of the ranks. What is your
Well, and
take
don't
on all
forget
this?
about CZ once again mistakenly staking customers' coins. Not that we haven't seen that before. I mean, once is a mistake, multiple times becomes a trend, and
That is true.
it's here's the deal. Klaus Schwab's an academic. My problem, logic is people in cryptocurrency really don't understand what the hell's going on. And it's sad because they come from ideologies that really narrows their vision. Whether you're talking about money or the world, the WEF economy, how things work. And, it filters through to cryptocurrency, which I think is probably stalling us out a little bit. But going back to Klaus Schwab, he's an academic. Academics live in the world of theory, and this guy doesn't live in the real world. And so the idea of his view of this takeover is doomed to fail. First off, Marxism, which that's what he basically is dealing with, his Keynesian Marxist thought coupled with technology. And Marxism fails because it's an absolutely wonderful theory, but it's an absolute shit in practice. It falls completely on its face because it's completely and totally contradictory to human nature. And so when you start to look at what Schwab is doing, this you will own nothing and all of this other stuff. If we rewind 100 years ago, that could have worked and did work in the Soviet Union, where you had people who were a bunch of serfs. But when you're talking about advanced developed economies where people own shit like houses
Yeah.
and cars and stocks and bonds and say, oh, we're going to take all of that over, it's a bunch of shit. You're not going to pull it off.
Especially
And
in America where we have guns.
well, it's funny how all of a sudden the Canadians are all getting excited and starting to embrace guns too. So you just look anywhere where tyranny goes over the line, people start to look at the raw primal basics of defense. And so when you start to look at that and you start to look at all that's going on, it all goes back to economics. It all goes back to, in my opinion, the EU. Russia's a distraction. Ukraine's a distraction. China's a distraction. The WEF's a distraction. All of this is meant to cover the fact that EU debt is imploding. Nobody wants it. The banks don't want it. New York banks won't touch it. That's why there's a collateral shortage in the Eurodollar system. Nobody's touching this debt. So what happens when the EU, the ECB, Germany, Italy, Spain, when they default on their bonds, they can't sell their bonds, they have tremendous obligations with these pensions and all this other stuff. And I'm not even getting into the demographics, which is horrific over there, much worse than the United States. They got aging populations. So they're doing this distraction to mask the fact that they blew up their bond markets. And everybody talks about debt. Debt is never a problem as long as you can keep selling more debt. Irving Fisher talked about this over 100 years ago. He called it Ponzi debt. In the United States, everybody talks about the 30 trillion. Who gives a crap? The United States can keep selling its debt because it's the only high quality and pristine collateral for the banks and the financial system.
I mean, you
The
look at
EU,
you look at Great Britain. Look at what the pound's been doing. I mean, I was looking at something. Hell, the pound looked like a crypto chart this week. It's like,
Yeah, well, you go look at the yen, look at the yuan. I
yeah,
mean, it's happening all over the place, and that's why I say this idea these gold bugs and Bitcoin maxis who sitting there saying, "Oh, the dollar's couldn't crash." I wrote a scathing article about Robert Kiyosaki, who next to Peter Schiff, who I don't know if Peter Schiff's an outright liar and an ignoramus or just a charlatan and running a con. I think it's more the latter because he's kind of Robert Kiyosaki is just a dumbass, and he sits there talking about the collapse of the dollar. It's like, what are you kidding me? You got 50% of global debt denominated in dollar. You just looked at charts of the pound. Look at the yen, the euro, the yuan. What flight to safety is the dollar. So this is the problem in the real to the theoretical world. When you start to talk about the collapse of dollar, and this is going to have an epic crash, not necessarily because of capital flow. If where are you going to put your international money if you're in Europe, if you're in China, if you're in Japan? Are you going to put it in your country stock market? Hell no. You're going to buy these bonds? Hell no. You're going to run to safety, which is the US dollar denominated assets. And that's why I think stable coins are such a powerful weapon, is because they are, and they give people access to the US dollar without having to get a dollar, which is also in a shortage. So this is all shit that Klaus Schwab is trying to fight. And if you look at the geopolitics, Sweden just kicked the greenies out and just said, okay, we're closing down this greenie climate change department. That's gone. Italy's turning away from it. Any country in Europe that has half a brain, when you're sitting there freezing your tits off because there's no gas and because Putin's the great Satan, which I'm not saying Putin's any altar boy or angel, but the simple fact of the matter is he has commodities, he has food, he has grains. You want this stuff. And I mean, this is all going to fall flat on its face. Klaus Schwab, actually, from a technical standpoint, he actually is correct about the Industrial Revolution 4.0. The problem is Klaus Schwab, because he's a theorist, he's an academic, in real world, you cannot predict timing. It's like if when Facebook bought Oculus, we said, okay, by 2020, all communication will be in VR. And we mandate that, and it's going to happen. Well, guess what? 2020 rolled around and we didn't have computerization that could handle this stuff. We didn't have servers that could handle this stuff. The headsets couldn't handle this stuff. The technology was not there. Will most communication be in VR? Maybe at some point, but we can't put a time frame on it. And that'll change communication. That'll change meetings. It'll change business. It'll change collaboration. It'll change everything. But we don't know when it'll happen. And that's where Klaus Schwab falls flat on his face. And then you get into the fact that this is not surprising. These centralized exchanges, they became banks.
yeah,
It's their mindset. It's like, okay, you get big, then you turn to the regulators because you can afford to adhere to the regulation. And you turn to the regulators to protect you to crush other startups. And that's what Coinbase, that's what Binance really isn't turning to regulators. They're a wild card. But
yeah.
FTX, Coinbase, all these entities, they're saying, oh, yes, we need regulation. Circle is running and saying, oh, yeah, we'll file for banking license.
Well, Circle, in my opinion, the USDC is the one that's going to be pegged as the quote unquote digital dollar. That I think it's being propped up for that at this point. Because I mean, you even got BlackRock that's involved in, at this point. So, and I've, Jerome Powell's even came out and said that if we do go down that route, it'll be more of a private, kind of thing. So they're looking more into stable coins, and that's probably why they're wanting to regulate stable coins so hard. Well, that in between, the fact that UST took a crap and, they don't like that kind of stuff happening, which honestly, I didn't like that too much either. That put me on my butt for sure. So,
Well, I take a little different view. I think stable coins, yes, the UST was the trigger. But I think stable coins, these political hacks, and I think they're all hacks, and these bureaucrats, stable coins are something they can conceptualize and understand, especially how
yeah,
it's playing out, because they are being pegged to the dollar. They are kind of mirroring. They're kind of acting like a currency. This is something they can understand. Bitcoin, the problem they still have with Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this other stuff is it has not acted as a medium of exchange. In fact, they've totally failed in that arena.
Yeah,
So I
for
think
sure.
these political hacks are still confused by that, but they kind of understand stablecoins because stablecoins are showing themselves to have a very evident use case. And it was ironically the use case that the Bitcoin maxis always promoted as Bitcoin, but the stable coins are stepping in on that. Now, this asinine bullshit. Oh, well, stable coins are a threat to the stability of the financial system. It's like that's even dumber than saying the subprime mortgages took down the global economy, and subprime mortgages were orders of magnitude larger in dollars than stable coins, and they were nowhere big enough to take down the global economy and cause a great financial crisis. It's again just misleading and misinformation and not understanding. So the fact is they want to control stable coins because I think the goal is to push the not Coinbase, excuse me, the circles, the Tether Foundation, all these foundations will have to be banks and be regulated. And then I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately Coinbase and some of these others get bought out by JP Morgan
Well, what do
and
you
whatnot.
what do you think of something like Maker and the DAI, the DAI ecosystem? You
It,
think that they
it,
could you think that they
it,
could get control of that?
They could if it depends on the decentralization. So again, this is why I'm so high on HBD.
Yeah.
HBD couldn't adhere to regulation if we wanted, because you get the form. First off, you ask who the hell is going to fill it out. And even if somebody volunteers, the first thing I'll ask is company. Uh, Hive Inc. We don't have one. So Hive can't even like comply if we wanted to, which we
Yeah.
don't. But so Maker is very interesting because they've tried to push decentralization. They've tried to push governance out. The question is how successful. And I listen to Dan a lot. They call me Dan, and he's been spot on with this shit for 3 years. And he talks about foundation, VC money, laboratories, companies, whatever. If you got something like that behind it, it's near impossible to go from centralized to decentralized. Again, first off, is that goes against human nature. I mean, typically, if we have power, most people don't willingly give it up. So that's number one. Number two, even if you do give it up, you're still a target, which means whatever you have in it, whether it's 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, they're going to target you. And that's where the fear factor comes in.
Yeah.
So I don't know enough. I mean, I hope that HBD isn't the only one playing outside the reach of government. I hope DAO and Maker can pull this off. And, I look at everything and you have to start with what are the points of vulnerability. If you
Yeah.
were at the SEC, Logic, and you said, I'm going to look at Maker, I'm going to look at DAO. If you were at the SEC, what would be your 3, 5, 10 points of vulnerability that you see? And if you do that exercise and you can figure it out, you bet your ass Gensler and his crew can figure it out. And
Yeah.
that's where the problem comes in.
Well, my number one problem with it at this point is that it's on Ethereum, and Ethereum, they're basically taking, said that they, it's under the purview of the United States because of the node structure and the node infrastructure. And that's where Ethereum has a big problem. And I think we talked about this last week, with the decentralization or the centralization factor of the majority of these proof of stake chains is what's going to be the downfall of a lot of this industry. And it's just, to me, it's, nobody's trying to be better than the traditional systems in that factor. I mean, now granted, I've got tokens that are, controlled by a, company or a DAO or whatever. People have voting rights, but it's essentially a board. But it's just a way for us to have a digital company kind of thing. That's where I feel like in the long run, we're going to eventually be able to develop faster than they can regulate. And we're already proving that. And I mean, the SEC, man, they're under such a gun right now, even from the United States government itself. You've got Congress. It's basically, the Republicans basically say when they win Congress, they're saying when they win Congress, Gensler's out. kind of thing.
Well, Gensler's term. I mean, you can't
I-
just throw people out midterm. I mean, so it's like I don't know when his term comes up, but it's like Powell. You mentioned Powell, and one reason
yeah,
why I
Powell
was
needs to go too.
one reason I was hoping Powell got renominated, and I'm glad he did, is simply because I knew under his reign you would not see a CBDC. You would not,
Yeah, that's true.
and you
Yeah.
will not. And everything you see, even Brainerd, who's an MMT, Brainerd's towing the company line and saying it's just not on high on our list. And Brainerd's out there talking about Fed Now, which actually Fed Now is a very impressive settlement system. That
I haven't looked into it enough.
well, what Fed Now is Fed Now is the settlement system. It's the payment system that the Federal Reserve is setting up domestic,
Yeah.
to replace the domestic payment system or in conjunction with the domestic payment system. And what it allows for is instant settlement.
Yeah.
And basically, and then you get all these jackasses on YouTube saying, see, there's the CBDC. And no, it goes through your existing bank account. What happens is you'll probably log on to your app, just like you log on your app. If you want to wire money to somebody, you'll have an option for Fed Now. Odds are your bank will charge you $30 or whatever to use the service, but you could send me money and it could settle instantly. So what happens is you activate it, your bank then alerts the Fed Now system that this is going to take place. It alerts my bank. The money's pulled from your account. The reserves are sent from your banks to my banks, and then the money shows up in my account and it settles, within minutes. No, I mean, this is still account-based banking. It's not using digital wallets or anything. It's using existing bank accounts. And that's a vast step forward. And that's a lot of what CBDCs from the central bank's perspective is designed to handle is quick settlements, especially internationally. But internationally, you got the problem of everybody agreeing on a CBDC. And as I said, this is from the central bank's perspective. From the politician's perspective, it's about power. It's about control. It's about them sticking their nose in there and being able to say, oh, no, you're purchasing something we don't approve of. You can't do that. Or, oh, you got to spend your money within 45 days or it disappears or whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah.
So you gotta always keep in mind the bankers and the politicians are two separate entities, and the academics are even the third entity. And who's running the show? And at the end of the day, the bankers still run the show. It's as I like bankers for one
Those
reason.
who control the money controls the rules,
Well, I like bankers for one reason. I know exactly where they come from. They're all about greed. They're all about profit. And you can't trust them as far as you can throw them, but you can't trust politicians as far as you can throw them. But at least bankers, I know exactly where they're coming from and I know what they're going for. Politicians, they're about power, but you don't know what the fuck route they're taking or what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the major difference. Bankers, it's all about money, and through the money comes the power. That you can deal with because that we can dismantle by going to their foundation. Politicians are another story. They flip-flop. Like you said, you got some that are going after Gensler. You got others that are not. These politicians are just completely lost. I mean, Powell's not completely lost. He's playing politics. That's the problem with Powell.
Yeah.
Powell should just draw the line in the sand and say, screw you, Congress. We didn't cause this inflation problem. We can't fix it. So shut the hell up and you guys fix it. You fix the supply chain. That's what he ought to do. But he understands the politics. He plays the politics as the Fed chair. And, that's one positive to him, but it's also a negative. I mean, Greenspan wouldn't play this game. Greenspan would sit there talking his bankeries and confuse the shit out of these politicians and, have AOC sitting there like cross-eyed, like, what the hell did he just say? Basically just called you a bunch of dumbasses without you realizing that's what Greenspan did. So, this is the worldview that I have. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. It's a race. It's a race for their governance and their ability to govern with our development. And you know what? It's a race that I think is already won because I remember Napster, and they went after Napster, and right after Napster, you got LimeWire, Kazaa.
I got a cease and desist letter from Metallica.
Okay, so and
that
did
was
you end
back
up
in the day.
and you go to LimeWire, and you still got the freaking Usenet, which has been around what 40 years, and you can go download,
Look at
all
BitTorrent, BitTorrent, and now it's it's
BitTorrent.
blockchain. Yeah, you got all that kind of stuff
So
going on.
I'm convinced this is just a broader scale viewpoint. Our government system, it was designed in a physical realm. I mean, they draw imaginary lines in the sand and say, if you're on this side of the line, this is your government's, other side of the line, it's something different. The digital world, it doesn't adhere to any of those rules.
It doesn't.
So this is where I think Klaus Schwab and these type of people are trying to operate through the traditional vehicles, when it's like, you just start to sit there and utilize Bitcoin. And the one thing the maxis do have going for them, Bitcoin maxis, is Bitcoin still, I don't think they can control. And I think that is a definite black eye on the establishment. The problem with Bitcoin is you can't build anything on it, really. So it's like,
yeah, but Bitcoin does what it does. It's meant.
It does.
It was originally meant to be just a transaction. The transaction layer kind of thing. And
since they haven't upgraded the software, it's still a transaction layer.
And that's all it is. Yeah, I mean, and it's the same thing with Monero. But Monero, in my opinion, is it's what I've been going into lately. Just kind of as like a whole thing, just because that's completely outside of their purview kind of thing. I mean, they've even put out, what it was like a $625,000 bounty on somebody, for anybody that could crack Monero. Still hasn't been taken. So, and honestly, like with the way that, and I hate that more people don't talk about the privacy side of things, and because that is eventually where it's going. The CBDCs, I mean, that's basically the social credit system. They want that control over your spending and that kind of thing. Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen so much in the US. Again, like if anything, they'll tap something like USDC, and because at this point they can control it. They know what wallets are. I mean, and if you've ever interacted with something like Coinbase, who actually works with the government with analytics and that kind of thing through Homeland Security and with Department of Immigration, I'll link in the description below the article that I wrote for CoinLogic, and talks about a couple of things like that. And so, but yeah, the problem with all that is that once you send a transaction to your account with KYC from your wallet, they've got that wallet tagged to your identity. Yep. And they can and you're done at that point, and that's why they hated Tornado Cash and they went after that. But you saw what kind of stink that got put up, and now it's back up and running. But the Treasury still has their, their lock, it's on their list basically.
Well, but
yeah, go ahead.
If I could interject here, what happens? Okay, they nail Tornado Cash, and this is the same thing with the file sharing program. What happens if all of a sudden 20 more open up using the open source code, and you get all of a sudden a couple dozen coin mixers? And you're right, the privacy is not discussed a lot. I think ultimately privacy is going to come into play, not so much to finance, but when you start to look at decentralized databases, you start to look at replacing some of these cloud operations, the AWS, you're going to need a privacy layer for this data, medical records, things of that nature. So I think ultimately you're going to see privacy layers built in, which it's going to be very interesting, because the old model, server-based model of protecting data, is probably going to die in the next 10 to 15 years, because decentralization is more secure. You can't really hack it, that type of thing. The downside is there's no privacy at this time. So I think I have a feeling that'll be built into it, which then that just opens up the Wild West, because then if you're, it's like, what is cryptocurrency? People are trying to figure it out. It's just data. So it's no different than medical data. It's just data sent back and forth and stored in places. And so if you're sending medical records and those are protected, you're going to be able to send financial stuff. So I just sit back and laugh. I think it's, especially at the U.S. Senate, because they're a bunch of fossils, and I know damn well these assholes don't understand 95% of what's going on.
They don't, and that's what's hilarious. It's like playing whack-a-mole. You know, I mean, how long have they been trying to sue Ripple? How long has this case been going on? I mean, a couple of years at this point, you know, and uh,
It's 3 or 4 years, something like that.
yeah, yeah, and Ripple's winning. So,
Yeah, and to be honest, they probably had. I mean, if there was ever a slam dunk in this industry, it was Ripple. I mean, come on,
yeah, love them
it's
or hate them, you know, it is what it
yeah,
is. You
they
know,
they they
they're the ones
look.
that are fighting them right now for the rest
Well,
of
they're
us,
the ones that are
basically.
fighting them, and they're the ones that are, when it comes to being as centralized as you can be in a security, Ripple probably checks all the boxes.
Yeah, right.
And still the SEC might lose. And it's taken 3 years. And in 3 years, we've thrown DeFi out there. We've thrown NFTs out there. We're starting to throw DAOs out there. We have Hive that forked from Steam that you really can't target. Hive probably will be forked. In fact, I hope somebody forks Hive and starts to create other stuff, because
Well, you got
it's
Blurt and you got some other stuff going
well,
too,
but
you know.
yeah, I mean, but did they, what does their token distribution look like? That's what it really comes down to, the token distribution and the node operation. I mean, if you have 10 nodes and 9 of them are the same person, I mean,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
still screwed. So, we know Hive has decent node spreading, where it's spread out, and so nobody's really in control of more than one node. You start to see what Honeycomb and Disregard's building, and the nodes there. They got like 60 nodes, non-correlated. So there are some base layer and layer 2 solutions starting to appear, and that's very important. The node infrastructure, once you get that and that's untouchable, then you can build a whole lot of open source stuff on
Yeah.
top. And then it's like you said, the game of whack-a-mole, because it's like, okay, they nail one URL, 6 more pop up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and we're seeing one big, like what you were talking about with just like, you know, one person running a node. We're seeing a lot of that in the Cosmos space right now, where you've got we got one person running multiple nodes, and they've got money, and they're coming in and pushing out a bunch of people from the active sets and that kind of thing. You know, in different POS systems, it's not like Hive where you've got um the rotating witness that comes in and out kind of thing,
Mhm.
which I still think that I still think that 20, or I mean a 17 to vote is an issue. I saw that during the Steam high fork situation. But because it only takes 17 people to come up with a decision on that. I think that that could be increased, in my opinion, but I don't know the tech specs behind that, and how that would affect the operation of the chain. But at the same time, I'm looking at these other ecosystems too, and it's like they don't have the rotating witness. If you get knocked out of the active set, you're out until you get enough to come back in, and it just becomes like a game of who can get
Well,
more
and
stake. And
also, I think the big thing is POS, as we're seeing with Ethereum. If you have 60% of the stake, you got a 60% chance of producing the block. So you would say,
or halting the chain.
uh,
You saw that
or
Binance Smart Chain. They got the bridge
well,
got hacked, and they got together, and there was like 3 or 4 validators that got together and said, "Let's just stop everything."
well, and that's because CZ
That could
said it.
happen.
So, I mean,
Well, no,
Binance
actually, I
Smart
don't think
Chain.
CZ has as much pull in the actual smart chain ecosystem as everybody says he does. So,
I think anybody who thought Binance Smart Chain was decentralized was pretty
no,
foolish. I mean,
no,
it's not. Polygon's probably not, but
none of them
BSC.
are. None of them are. None of them are
Oh,
fully decentralized. I really don't think so. That's just my
Hive,
take.
Hive and Bitcoin are the only one that can make a case that they really
Um,
cannot be attacked.
we got Monero, and I still believe
I don't
Litecoin's
know the
got enough distribution.
Monero miner system, so
It's CPUs. Anybody can spin up a miner, man.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all CPU based. That's what's beautiful about it.
But
ASIC
again, with
resistance.
Monero, it does one thing and one thing only, but you can't really build on Monero other than the privacy and transferring value back and forth. It's like Bitcoin with a privacy layer,
Yeah, that's all it
which
needs to
has,
do.
well, that's true, but the problem is if you want to build decentralized infrastructure for applications that can be impervious to government interference, whether you're talking speech, whether you're talking financial, where the hell else are you going to go other than Hive? You really can't go to Hive until we get a robust smart contract system going at a layer 2. But outside of that, where are you going to go to? You're not going to build that on Monero. You're not certainly not building it on Bitcoin. And that's the problem when you start to get into synthetics, when you start to want to truly run decentralized finance. You can't run DeFi on Ethereum because it's centralized. So even if you do decentralize everything at the second layer, the government can go to the node operator and say, block their transactions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely
And that's the problem.
Well, have you ever looked into something like the Secret Network? What they've done, they're on the Cosmos ecosystem, but what they've done, they've got it's a transparent layer 1 for transactional layers with their secret token, but then you wrap it into, like something like, say Hive Engine, kind of situation where you wrap Hive into Swap Hive. It's the same thing. You wrap it into their secret tokens. And then what it does is it then has a privacy layer attached to it. You can even do like privacy LP and that kind of stuff. You can bridge Monero over to it, which is pretty cool. That's got a chance, but the problem with that is the centralization of the chains and the validators on the chains. And I'm looking at you pull up the block explorers and just see the top like 10 validators can absolutely cause chaos on the network, and we can't have that, and people don't care about I don't think people care about decentralization.
No,
The original fundamentalists, like guys like me that came into it for a specific reason, for that whole original cypherpunk mentality.
Mhm.
We do care about decentralization and that kind of thing, but where most people that are in it now, your NFTs, your DGens, your energy NFT DGens, your DeFi DGens, your traders that are coming from the stock or forex world into crypto just because of the volatility, they don't give a shit about decentralization. They don't care.
Even your social media people don't give a
social
shit.
media people don't care. That's why they're not on Hive.
Yeah.
And the ones that do post here are it's basically just a post drop just to try to make some extra money kind of thing, to say, oh, I post on Hive.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at Wendio.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's look at crypto. Got kicked off YouTube.
Crypto's
Started
news,
talking about it on Hive. Got his YouTube channel back, and it's like, oh, okay, all is well in the world. You're right. I mean, it's people don't give a shit about decentralization till they get affected. Then suddenly it's important. And the one saving grace for Web3 is Web2 is not going to stop. I mean, Facebook and Twitter, well, maybe Twitter under Elon, but Facebook and YouTube are not going to suddenly reverse course. They are going to keep hammering and hammering and hammering. And if you go and do something they don't like, they are going to hate you. And that scope, in my observation, is just getting bigger and bigger, of people who are having to, you'll watch a video and you'll have say, the guy or girl will say, I got to be careful what I say, because if I say this word, I got to use another word because YouTube will pick up on it and block this video. And that's just getting more and more commonplace. So, I think.
Have you looked into something like Rumble? I know they run their own server ecosystems and that kind of thing. I know a lot of the political folks are moving over and also posting on something like Rumble. I've joined it. I haven't posted anything there. I'm still sticking to 3Speak.
Those are either VC money or somebody's putting up big bucks, and
they still all have terms of service that they can shut you down, kind of thing.
Exactly. I mean, at the end, it's like you said. Once you're indoctrinated into the true crypto value system, the high value system, the own your account, the immutability of not only what you post but your money and your finance. All that other stuff looks like a clown show. And, it's like you can mention a 24 different blockchain projects and show me the VC money, and I'll say I don't want to say it's destined to fail, but it's not in accordance with what we're talking about. And it's going to be controlled because the VCs, A, want to get paid, and B, the VCs are going to comply because they don't want their nuts in the crosshairs of, the alphabet agencies either. So, it's like, again, I end up in, and a lot of us end up sounding like hive maxis, but the more you talk yourself around, you keep circling back. And it's like, no matter where I go, no matter where I look, okay, why do you talk about hive? Talk about other shit. Okay, tell me other shit to go look at that's not centralized, that doesn't have VC, doesn't have a lab or a company behind it. Let's go find some. Other than Bitcoin, which, like you said, is very, very specific in its purpose, what the hell else is out there? And now with the Ethereum in the last month, anything built on Ethereum is just obliterated because we know Ethereum is government compliant or
Yeah.
will be.
Well, we
So
got 3
that's
minutes left in this first part, so I wanted to give you that warning real quick. But yeah, I want to get into that a little bit into the second part, and why, like I'm building some things on the ecosystems that I am, and I'm just, even after the change over to proof of stake, that makes me way more leery about Ethereum, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But we're gonna go ahead and I'll cut this part, and then we get second part started up, and then we were talking about all the crazy madness that we got going on, and basically playing whack-a-mole with regulators trying to play whack-a-mole with us here. um you know Going back to the decentralization factor, I think that that's honestly the most important discussion. And I saw, even like, when I do go and listen to, like, they call me Dan, and Matt from Three Speed talk about it, sometimes it feels like, just beating a dead horse, but it's at the same time, that horse still needs to be beaten, and I'm not, for my animal lovers out there, I love horses, I grew up around them, so no, but anyway, uh, don't want to offend people, but yeah, so it's the whole, and that's where, like what they're trying to do with Three Speak, trying to create that whole decentralized video platform, honestly, but not enough people use it. Now, I mean, I know that the technology still needs work. I mean, it's like what last week we had the issue where the video didn't load until the next day. Because we got issues with the encoding structure, but it's all, it's new technology. And if we don't reach out and try to do better and than what we have, we're never going to beat the AWSs or the Facebooks or anything like that if we don't continue to try to build out these infrastructures. So the continuing, just the continual usage of these other platforms just because, oh, they work better and they're free or this and that, and it's defeating the whole purpose of the ecosystem. But you can't change people's minds, and like you and I, we're a little bit in the older class here. You've got your crazy amount of experience. I'm just really getting into the whole financial end of things within the last like 4 years, as I got into crypto, and it's crazy how crypto brings people into the economy, kind of thing. One question I do want to ask you, just because I want to try to better the CoinLogic site, other than just speed and bringing data in a little bit faster. Where are some good research sites for macro, that kind of, like, what do you use for your research, for your macroeconomic research and that kind of thing?
uh, there's a number of sources. And quite frankly, YouTube is still to talk about Web 2 and the centralized shit. YouTube is still a wonderful resource. Now, of course, you got to be very, very careful of who you listen to, but you can start to see people who really understand things. Um, I will tell you it this way. First off, if you're going to listen to anybody with an economics background, make sure they manage money. If they manage money, they deal in the real world. So somebody like Raoul Pal, who I may not agree with everything he says, but he understands because
I was about to ask you about him. Yeah.
he actually managed money. And the
Hmm.
reason, because this is what I was talking about earlier about the stock market. If you manage money, you understand capital flow, and you also don't have the luxury of having, these asinine theories that you read about and memorized from the 1970s that were probably written down in the 1930s. You have a theory when you're managing money. If you're managing the money yourself, your losses will tell you. The market disagrees with you.
Yeah.
If you work for a firm that manages money, and you're not managing it yourself, but you're doing analysis, the trading desk will let you know your theories suck. So that's really where I think the starting point is. So, for example, if some dumbass talks about money printing and the Fed print money and dollars, you know that they're economists. They live in the theoretical world. They don't understand how money really operates. Um, the New York Fed is actually a very good place. They got a thing called, I think it's Liberty Street Research. And the Fed itself actually does a lot of research, a lot of papers, a lot of analysis. So does BIS. And so you can really start to get some good ideas from their research. They're academic in nature, but they give you ideas that compare and contrast. And a lot of times, what's ironic is the Fed's own research actually contradicts what the Fed is doing in the
Yeah.
FOMC conclusions. One example is the impact of quantitative easing and quantitative tightening. And one guy, I think it was from the Atlanta Fed, one economist, he wrote a whole paper up and he did an analysis and he said 2.7 trillion, not billion, trillion in roll-offs of 3 years will have a net impact of 27 basis points on interest rates. It's like, are you kidding me? 27 basis points. And these jackasses are engaging in this exercise over 27 basis points, and you got to do 2.7 trillion to get there. It's just absurd. So those are some good areas. Also, a lot of common sense. I mean, if you just look at what goes on around you and understand banking and money, the banking system, the wholesale banking system, what they're doing, and you watch what's going on versus what the talking heads on CNBC or Bloomberg or the idiots on crypto Twitter talk about, or econ Twitter, I guess it would be. You start to realize how these
It
people
all
don't
meshes together these days.
well, they do, and unfortunately, it's like I see the little gifts. Oh, the Fed's printing money, and it's like you set up a crypto economic system with your token. It's like you don't understand what's going on, and so that's where I went to school for economics, and I thought it a joke back then, 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago, and it's still a joke now because it's
Yeah.
theoretical. It's not real world. These people don't shape markets. They don't conduct business. They sit on the sidelines and create their models. And by the way, that's why crypto is. You find some of these like Lawrence Summers and these people like that. This is why they're totally against crypto. They don't get it because it doesn't fit into their models. Crypto is totally different on their models and
That's
screws them
so
up.
funny. I've been having the same type of discussion about colleges and universities with my daughter. She's a senior and she's, doing the whole FAFSA thing and trying to do her student loan stuff and trying to pick colleges. And it's like she's getting all this advice from these teachers and counselors that have honestly never left school.
No,
They've
no.
never experienced the real world or private, most of them have never experienced like private enterprise or anything like that, or have had to produce any real results for anything. And it's like, I'm like, gee, please take this into account. It's like, you're getting all this advice from people that have honestly been in school their entire life. And it's like, these are people that are, coaching you to get in debt for the rest of your life so that you can be like them. It's like,
Yeah.
I really need you to think about this and think about, college as an investment. And so it's the same thing, I guess. It's like you got a lot of these academic and, economists that honestly don't know shit about how the real world is actually working right now. It's like, you got freaking Janet, you got Lion yelling coming up. And oh yeah, the economy's in great shape. Really?
Well,
It's
you got
like,
to. Yeah, with Janet Yellen, I mean, I'm no Janet Yellen fan, but you got to understand she takes her marching orders from the White House because
uh,
that's who she works for. And I mean, I understood the whole hoopla about that, but to be honest with you, if you were in the White House, are you going to sit there and say, "Oh shit, things suck"? Or are you going to come out as president and say, "Oh well, we know there were two negative quarters, but that's off a screaming economy," which that's bullshit in and of itself.
well,
But anyway,
you're asking the wrong person that because I'm gonna come out and be like, we fucked up. But that's
well,
me. we're going to try to
That
fix it,
that doesn't
kind of thing. But
unfortunately, that doesn't work as
that
president.
doesn't
That
win, that
doesn't
doesn't
work
win
as
elections.
well, it doesn't work as CEO of companies. I mean, CEOs can't come out and say we suck because we're morons. They have to come out and blame the supply chain or blame the consumer or blame, their suppliers or somebody, because if not, there's got to be a reasonable explanation that shareholders are going to accept. And that's part of the problem with the system is it's much more effective to blame the other person sitting on the other side of the aisle, or on Capitol Hill, or your competition or somebody. I did it in business. We had a bad month, I'd fire a salesperson. It's like, well, I had to show my boss that I was doing something, so I fired somebody. Oh, your sales sucked, okay, you're gone.
that's
Well,
why I
well,
like
what?
working for myself. It's like I'm accountable to me. And
Well,
that's
that
why I've
that
been getting into trading so much, is because I finally realized that it's like I'm only accountable to myself in the market. The market tells me if I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I got to figure out how to adjust it. I don't have to, deal with all that, or I don't know. It's just
Well,
it's
the
crazy.
reason why most people fail in trading is because they don't take that approach, because you say
Hmm.
it's responsibility. They don't take responsibility for their trades, and they want to blame the market, and that's how you fail at trading, because the market does what the market does. You have to take responsibility for your results, because you're the one pushing the buy or the sell button.
Yep.
That's it. And it's like, well, the market didn't do what it was supposed to do. Well, the market isn't supposed to do anything. The market does what markets do. It's like,
Market tells you what it's doing in real time, and you got to pay
and,
attention if you're going to be a
and
good
it's
trader.
insane. It's
Yeah,
driven by
it's
fear or
crazy.
greed. So the
Hmm.
market is insane. You're trying to follow and outthink an insane person. Uh, a lot of insane people. They're emotional, and that's what the market is. And you got to figure it out if you're going to be a successful
It's
trader.
it's honestly, for me, it's that thing that has been keeping me sharp, and I've just gotten my like trading account back into like, full swing here, had some financial relief in the last week or so. So I'm able to get back and going on that. And but what in the time that I've been down, I've been doing more research than anything, and really just trying to sharpening like my skills, my edge, that kind of thing. Because that's one thing that, I know you don't you don't really do much trading. I don't really ever hear you talking
No,
about it. You're
I'm
more of
not
a
much of a trader. I've blown up a few trading accounts, so I'm probably a foremost expert on trading. And the thing about trading is you have 1,000 different models you can use, and many of them are
Mhm.
valid. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever your parameters and whatever your system is for entering and exit, that's fine. Here's the keys to success for trading, as I understand. Number one, whatever your system is, whatever your rules are, have them written down. And number
Follow
two,
it.
fucking follow
Exactly.
them. Follow them.
That's pretty much it.
And
And
that's it.
that's pretty much it.
And
Yeah. But like
it,
my thing is like, and I actually had an opportunity to sit down with a trader from Fidelity. He's a friend of my uncle's. He's an old school guy. He's been in it for a while. And dude still scalp trades every day. Like he's like, I live for it. He's like, I'd rather scalp trade the markets. He's like, than go gamble. He's like, when I feel like I want to go to a casino, that's when I go trade Bitcoin. I started laughing. But I mean, and he gave me some really awesome tools and some skills that I've really been trying to work and sharpen on, trying to, become, better at my trade. So all my paper trades have actually been doing pretty well. That since I've been, haven't been doing live stuff, but that's actually helped me kind of hone in on that. But it's it's the type of
another
thing that
ball
just
game when you get
it's
the
like
emotions
it's
of
like an
money
at
in there.
yeah, well, yeah. And it's like, for me, it's like I think of it as being an athlete kind of thing. Like, every day you got to get in there and practice and build yourself up. And it actually makes me want to be more physically fit so that I could be more mentally sharp, that kind of thing. I'm also like, I did some time with some, military activities and that kind of thing. I'm a bit of a survivalist. So, that's one thing that was preached, is making sure that your skills are sharpened. No matter what you're focusing on, make sure that is sharp as a knife, so people that come in and think that they can just throw some money down on something and they're going to do good, you look at people like Portnoy, It's like, oh, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just throwing money and I'm winning. Then all of a sudden he starts losing and he starts, slamming his computer around and shit because he's an idiot.
Yeah, I mean,
You got too many people, these kind of people that are out there in the markets and you got these influencers that are basically just pumping and dumping on their, audiences and stuff. And that's what we've got to look for.
the
And
the the thing with trading is the simplest thing in the world. It's so
yeah,
simple, it's stupid, but it's the hardest thing to do in the world. Because again, I
well
don't
and
care
consistent.
what your trading system is. You can just do a Google search and find thousands of trading systems, many of them valid. I don't care what indicators you use. If you use them consistently and you use them in the appropriate situations, fine. The bottom line is people make money, and this is why 90
Like
percent
90,
or more,
92%. Yeah.
95% of people lose money when trading. It's very simple. When you get a buy signal, you buy. When you get a sell signal, you sell. Regardless of what your system is, when your system says this, yes, you can own your system over time. Yes, you can learn things like that. But the bottom line is if your system says sell, don't sit there and say, I know it says sell, but I think it might rebound. I think,
Yeah.
don't
I
fucking
feel.
think. And it's very hard to do when the emotions are there and you say, oh shit, if I sell now, I'm going to take a $500 loss. Well, a $500 loss can quickly turn into $1,000 loss if you're not careful. And that's why these traders who are successful, they understand, they minimize the emotions of it. They follow their system to a T. They stick to their rules, and they also understand, they master themselves. The trading system's easy to master. That's simple. Mastering yourself is very difficult. And the emotions of money, it's real. And that's
Oh
why
yeah.
most people, including myself, I totally fucked up and I bombed out. Now I do some trading on an intermediate, time frame. That's a little different because then I'm looking at anywhere from 3 to 12 months.
More of a swinger
Swing
position trade.
trading,
Yeah.
yes, more swing trading.
Yeah.
But it's people who are successful and who master themselves. That's the biggest thing. You then master a system, and you got to do them simultaneously, and then you can make big bucks because the world is your oyster. Because
Hmm.
as they always say, there's always another trade to be made. There's always another profitable trade to be made. Once you master yourself and you master your system, it's like just waiting for the signals, and then it's like boom, jump in
That
and
that's
get
where
your
I'm
percent.
at these days. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all about working on the psychology. I've been watching this on YouTube. I've been watching this one channel called SMB Capital. They're a prop firm, prop trading firm out of New York, and they put all their different like staff meetings up, and they got traders that'll come up and show you why. They lay out the whole playbook. That's how I learned how to actually like create like a playbook of my trades, basically like
Mhm.
how my play, what I'm looking for, basically honing in on my stuff. And my edge is I'm basically focusing on nothing but Bitcoin, occasionally Ethereum when Bitcoin's boring. Ethereum will move a little differently, depends on the dominance levels. But I've been really focusing on volume profile, man, because that's like real time action, supply and demand, that kind of thing. And I've been honing in on that. But yeah, it's the psychology of it all, because you can hone in on these different skills, these different indicators. You can learn stuff all day long. Me, I'm trying to teach things too. So as I'm learning things, I'm trying to teach it because that actually helps me absorb it better. Um, but yeah, they have this psychologist that on SMB Capital that comes on. He actually works with all their traders, but he'll do these like hour long, sessions on YouTube that it gets recorded and put on YouTube. And yeah, it's all about the psychology. That's what
Because
it's
you can
all about.
see, you're constantly battling the two major emotions of fear and greed.
Hmm.
And you can see how this comes into play in your trades. If you're down, you're fearful of taking a loss. And then if you're up, you're greedy. If it's up 10%, you want 20%. If you're up 40%, you want 80%. And that causes people not to push the sell button, to
Yep.
say, okay, I'm going to take my profits, or I'm going to take my loss, get out of this trade and move on. People look at each trade as just the end of the world, and that you can't do. You have to be fluid and say, okay, that one didn't work out. And you watch these people on CNBC, like Fast Money and some of these, and okay, it's a little easier. They're playing with other people's money, but they sit there and it's like, oh, I was wrong on that one. And because they've been at it 25 years, you're going to have your losses. In fact,
Yeah.
you can have, depending on your trading system, you can have a hell of a lot more losses than you have wins,
You just
and
need to
still
win
come out
bigger.
ahead financially, because when you win, you make 2, 3, 400%. And when you lose 1 to 5%,
Yeah.
and you lose a lot of 1, 2, 3%ers. But when you're right, it's like, boom, you made bank. And, that's where it all comes down to. What's your trading system? But the most people don't fail because of their trading system, even though they believe it. I see so many people trying to change their trading systems. Oh, I failed. It had nothing to do with the trading system. It's
Oh man.
you.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, hey,
I
I'm
need new
guilty of
ways to
that.
learn how to trade. You need to learn new ways how to control yourself.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do.
I fell into that trap, man, so many times. I bought this person's course or that person's course, or I started using this indicator because this person said, was doing this and that. And I started using this indicator and trying to use that indicator. And it's like, no,
You can get rich off crossovers. You can get rich off support and resistance. You can get rich off probably coin flipping. I mean, you can get rich off so many different things as long as you are consistent. When your system, whatever it is, says sell, you
yeah,
sell. And when
yeah,
your system says buy, you buy. And you set your stop losses, or your parameters for your stop loss, whatever it is. And you set your parameters for taking some profits and stick to it. And the, it's easy to do on paper, and you say, hey, I have a 90% success rate or 80% success rate. The problem is when emotion is there and you made 50% in 15 minutes, you're like, I'm going to make 100% in an hour. Well, all of a
yeah,
sudden it reverses and you should have taken profits. And next thing you know, it's down 10%. I mean,
yeah.
that's where, people have to understand what they're doing. And, I don't think most people do. I did a small trade on the last pump, and I sold my Hive at like 62 cents. I did it on the internal engine, and I bought it back at like 48, right about where it is now, maybe
Yeah,
50.
there you go.
I made a few hundred Hive in like a week.
There you
It
go.
wasn't a big deal. I was playing with, I don't know, 600-700 Hives, so I made like 25%. The opportunity took it. I jumped in, but I'm not going to sit there and try to scalp, a couple cents off Hive every day. It's just,
Yeah,
but again, trading is a great way to make a living if you're good at it, because you can do it from anywhere. It's very low cost in terms
that's
of
what
your
I love.
overhead.
Yeah,
I mean, and you can write your own ticket. It's kind of like, I listen, as I said, I listen to They Call Me Dan. It's kind of like that with him in poker. He
yeah,
knows that if he needs money, if he needs cash, he says, I just go and grind for a few days, and I know I can do it, and he can turn a profit playing poker. You get some traders, it's like, okay, I need 10 grand for something. They can go and turn 10 grand in a week or a month because they have that ability.
yeah. And that's what you just got to believe in yourself. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's just like any other buy sell business. You're just doing it differently. It's no different than me going down to Ross or TJ Maxx and scouring through the clearance aisles and that kind of thing, looking for something to turn around and flip on eBay.
Or no
I
different
actually,
than the guy,
eh,
who runs the pawn shop, and you walk in with something and he knows exactly what that watch is worth and how much he can make off of it. He knows his business.
exactly. Yep, he knows his business. And like where I think a lot of people, not just like, just traders, but really investors, especially newer investors coming into the space, is that there's so many like bright and shiny things everywhere and they want to be a part of all of it because it's all going to go to the
Well,
moon.
isn't
But
that
like,
the case on Hive? You see all these people going after all these different tokens, and it's like,
yeah,
you got to understand, on Hive Engine, 95% of them are
most
going
of
to
them.
be worthless.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have a few of them. So
We
it's
all
like,
do.
yeah, I mean, I created a few of them, so I mean, I know, that it's, it is what it is. And so that's why, like, it was like the guy that I talked to from Fidelity. It was like he's like the way that you're, and I've heard this mirrored from a couple other, investors recently. Is or actually, a while back. I'm really just trying to let it sink in at this point and working on it with my own mental facilities. But it's consolidating on one thing, focusing on one thing, that will make you rich.
Mhm.
Diversification is not going to make you rich. Diversification helps you keep it in the long run. And that's one thing that people miss out on a lot.
I think
And
you touch on a huge point in which I've written about this. Go to the Bloomberg Billionaire Index, and you look at the top billionaires, everybody from Elon Musk to Warren Buffett to the Walton family. You can go through the top 40 or 50 people,
mhm,
and do you know most of them you can associate a company with? I mean, Elon Musk, Larry
yeah,
Ellison, uh, Sergey and Brin, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, anytime I mention these guys, you have a name with a company with it.
mhm,
That's where most of their wealth is. It's not in real estate. It's not in stocks. I mean, well, it is in stock, but it's in Apple stock or Tesla stock or Google stock. And you don't see many people who are quote unquote like billionaires because they're into like a conglomerate where this person's into just a whole bunch of different stuff. They're into very specific things, and you're right that diversification is a model for low returns. You
yeah,
want high returns, you go all into one or two things in your niche that will do very, very well. There's people who make a shitload, like what was that show? I never really watched it, but the two dudes who drove around into old like farmhouses and scavenging.
yeah, American Pickers or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those dudes, like they're like just glorified pawn, not pawn people, where they go out and they
Freudian
look at,
slip.
yeah, they go out and they look at something and they know the market value, and they're just very good at what they do.
Yeah,
And it's the same thing with this. You can get wealthy in real estate, you can get wealthy in cryptocurrency, you can get wealthy in the stock market, or you got to be in specific sectors of the market.
mhm,
And you get too many people who are all over the place. And you try to get into all this other stuff, and people talk about diversification. I'm like, look, when the economy goes to shit, when markets go to hell, and we saw the bear market, crypto went to hell, stocks went to hell, bonds went to hell. It's like, where was the safe haven? There was no safe haven. Gold. Oh, well, that went to shit too. Silver, that went to shit. Oh, they're manipulating. Yeah, I know. Fuck you. They went to shit too. Like everything else, Bitcoin went to shit. It's like, where was the safe haven? There was no safe haven. So if you're not getting the downside protection, why are you limiting your upside by saying, okay, well, I'll spread myself across these 18,000 investments, and then you never make any money? You
yeah,
go all into one, two, three, whether it's crypto, whether it's high tech, high PE stocks, whatever it is, then you can make some money on the bull runs. That's
yeah,
how you do it. And you know your shit. So, I know Hive, I know cryptocurrency, I know Tesla. I don't know Home Depot. I don't own any Home Depot. I don't follow Home Depot. I don't know any of these staples. I know commodities a little bit, but I don't invest in commodities. I don't do futures trading.
yeah,
I don't know that shit. I don't worry about it. I watch commodities based on pricing, how they affect things from a macro scale. I
yeah.
don't buy future contracts. People who know about future contracts can make a lot of money. And it's the same thing. I know Hive, I know certain sectors of the cryptocurrency industry, and this is where I stake my claim.
Yeah, I guess, and it's like I've been really trying to rein myself in. I've bounced around. I've done all kind of different things in this industry. The past 4 years, I've built all kind of stuff. I'm just trying to find my hand. And it's finally like sinking in that this is the direction that I'm supposed to go in, and I'm supposed to trade Bitcoin, and I'm supposed to trade Ethereum, and just kind of bounce back and forth
If
between
if
those
you
two.
if you trade those two,
The
you will
reason,
know those fucking charts very well, and you
yeah,
will know
and
the
that
moves, and you will know the signals.
and it's they've got the most data out of any of it,
Yeah, well, that
out of
helps too.
anything. They've got the most data that you can analyze, and the fact that there's no reason to go and jump around all the different coins and going down the list, because Bitcoin runs as it is. And then Ethereum, everything else basically follows that. And when it all follows Bitcoin, it's following Bitcoin pretty closely. So you might as well just trade Bitcoin, but so that's why I like to watch dominance. So when dominance changes, that's when I flip over and I trade Ethereum. But yeah, you study those charts, the moves that they're making, you can predict that kind of stuff, and you can make a lot of money doing it. I like trading with leverage, because I'm trading with small amounts of money coming up. So you got to be very strategic with it and that kind of thing. And I've blown up, I blew up my account before and that kind of thing. But that's what really had to make me take a step back for several months and really just kind of like focus on things. But yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier in the first segment. It's like I'm trying to find that, I've been around trying to find those different things, because I've had I've had a few issues with Hive and stuff here and there. And, feeling like, the projects that I've built doesn't get the support that I felt like they need. But, it is what it is, but I keep coming home, and like we've said before, Hive is home, for so many of us at this point. And we just haven't gotten enough eyes on that yet to really see the potential of where this could go. Hive is home. I do everything here.
Yeah,
When I
and projects that get overlooked, that doesn't mean they'll always be overlooked, because an amazing thing
yeah,
is this is very fluid. And so, I talked to John, and they have high pay, and it's like, well, how come everybody's not using high pay? And it's like, well, it's there, and there may come a time where all of a sudden it's like all these different websites will realize, shit, we can integrate this right in. It's a few
I'm
lines of code.
trying. They've got some issues that,
Yeah, I mean,
on some things that need to be fixed. But yeah, I mean, it works. I use it for different things. I
the
wish,
other problem is you have the problem they have. It comes
yeah,
back to development. Same problem Disregard has with Honeycomb. When you only have one developer or maybe two developers, things get to be very slow going.
they
And,
do.
it's just unfortunately everybody's looking for the quick fix. And if you're not bringing out updates every 3 days, it's kind of like, well, nothing's going on.
Yeah,
And that's a problem with maintaining that attention, is if you don't have somebody at the same time constantly talking about it, like the Speak Network guys. Those two are always out on Twitter. They're always out talking about this stuff. And then they have their developers building stuff. It gets very difficult. And that's
yeah,
where I always say, I talk about this on Cryptomaniacs. It's like I have no qualms about holding CTP, because I know those guys aren't going anywhere. And yes, I'd like shit to come out quicker, but I realize that, development takes time, and no matter how fast you type and how much code you get set down, the real fun begins when you flip the switch and go live. And then
oh,
that's when extermination begins, because that's when all the bugs come out, as we found out with the hard fork 26.
yeah,
Some of the best programmers Hive has. And there was a couple glitches, and I guess the 27th hard fork went through this morning. I didn't even check, but they had to develop a patch, and they did, I guess.
yeah. Well, that reminds
So
me, I need to reset my bots and everything. Yeah, and Hive has got a very unique situation going on in the fact that it actually has, honestly, in my opinion, the most use case out of any blockchain out there. And the fact in the social aspect of things, I mean, you don't even have to have the second layer to have DeFi, because we got the savings wallet with HBD. You can throw it in there and earn interest on that. And you got
mhm.
earn interest on your curation and that kind of thing. I mean, Hive has got everything basically on layer one that most average people would need, but it's just that it gets so pushed down the attention scale, because we don't have that VC funding behind us trying to push like some of these bigger projects. And I'm finding that that's all these big projects have, is just
Of
marketing.
course,
Most
of
of them are just
course,
smoke and mirrors and a white
of
paper, and
course.
they're all
It's
bullshit. So,
you
which we
know
got
what
4 minutes left, by the way. So
it, this is giving me deja vu all over again. This is nothing but the .com bubble. I mean,
yeah,
I went through this in the .com era, watching that, and it was the same freaking thing. And all these VC companies would back up the truck, throw money at people, and you just scratch your head and say, $3 million, $4 million, $10 million, $20 million. Nothing's coming out of it. And sure as shit, nothing's been coming out of it. I
Yep.
mean, these things are abysmal failures. Now, that doesn't mean they're not successful. I mean, Coinbase was very, very profitable for the VCs. A lot of these other things were very, very profitable, just like Facebook and some of these others that started. Amazon, that started with some VC funding, ended up returning a great return. Twitter, but you know, we do it by the bootstraps, and that's why I really like the Speak networks. They don't take VC money; they're getting some from the DAO, and it's taking longer. But if we get the infrastructure and they pull off what they're looking at pulling off, this will be a great baseline of infrastructure for us to build. Basically an entire financial system on top of which. That's what I've been proposing, and they seem keen on the idea. And I proposed again this morning in an article of adding another layer, a base layer, but adding another option for DeFi and you know, incentivizing people to put Hive into savings and get
Yeah.
an ROI there. I mean, it's
Yeah, that'd be
just these
good.
things are possible.
Well, yeah, man. That's yeah. Speak Network could do a lot, especially on the backing of like the deluxe system and everything. We're just gonna have to see how we continue to go, and just we all just need to learn how to be patient a little bit. And in these last couple of minutes, I just wanna, that's kind of what I'm, really kind of learning myself is, and I know I preach it sometimes too, is just patience and just focusing on those things that are really important in life, because we can get out there, like we talked about, we have no control over what Coinbase does if they're signing over to the New World Order and, the old Klaus Schwab. Let them do it. You just need to make your own decisions, do your own research. We want to be here to kind of help at least guide the conversations along and to help give you any, you know, research that we can give you, that kind of thing. So I appreciate you coming on, Task. These are always great conversations, and I'm sure we can find something to, continue on with the conversation and with next week. So do you have anything you want to leave everybody with
Well,
today?
just tying in that idea of what you're talking about. I mean, there's no doubt the world is going to become more digital. We're going to keep moving. More of our stuff is tied to digital. And this is where decentralized infrastructure is so important,
Yes.
is because of exactly what you're talking about, whether you're talking about governance, WEF, banks, corporations, Amazon, whatever you want to talk about, AWS. If we can keep growing and expanding the decentralized infrastructure and building digital platforms on this decentralized infrastructure, that's outside their reach and their control.
That'll
And
be it.
that's going to be a foundation for society, in my opinion.
Well, that's a great place to end it, man. Well, you have a great rest of your day, and I hope everybody got something good out of this. If you listen long enough, we appreciate that. Share it along, man. That's the only way we're all going to grow. So you have a great week, Taskmaster, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Take it easy.